Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and with me back again is my boy, the Welsh, Chris Welsh, returning. It's January. You know what that means. It's time to turn the page. We're talking baseball now. We're going to talk about the top 50 guys in the ranks over Fantasy Pros in the ECR. Welsh has done his ranks. I've done mine. It's very early. Guys are still signing. Carlos Correa could have 3 or more teams he could try to sign with before the end of the show. But no, he's actually going to be a twin, it looks like, as we're recording this. So, Welsh, it's great to see your face. It's great to be back talking baseball with you. Are you ready for 2023, baby?
Oh, am I ready? Are you ready, buddy? I mean, you've got the transition. You got the crazy football transition. I've been doing football, obviously, but it is full-time fantasy Joes on the football side. But now you're coming to baseball with me, which I'm excited about, which you were just talking about ranks. And my only anxiety is like, oh my God, I'm already going to have to go and change Carlos Correa. And then we just got news broke about Trevor Story as well, having a UCL surgery that's going to leave him out 4 to 6 months, which might push him post All-Star breaks. This is another player at also a really garbage position that we're going to take off the board.
I'm really glad I updated the Black Book for Carlos Correa a couple hours ago before this happened.
I saw you post that.
I did. I was like, well, I got to go do it again. So I'll update this, rewrite some things there. And then this happened. So now I'm going to have to go back tomorrow and do some more. But I'm just going to talk baseball now. Enough of that. More injuries, I'm sure, to come. But we've got a fresh slate, a new start. And we're going to talk about the top 50. We're going to break down these tiers. Let's start at the top, 1 through 10, and we're going to talk about these guys, give you our opinions here, maybe who's too high, who's too low, who should be in the top 10, who's not. Before we do, just a reminder, not only is baseball season open for business here, but it's also open for business at Fantasy Pros because the Draft Wizard is now open for business. That's right. You can go there and start doing mock drafts. I got a B+ on mine yesterday. I did my first one of the year. I'll take the B+. It was pretty good. Got a lot of Joe guys in there.
Yeah, I was about to say, do we have it yet where the analysts are on? Did you love your own draft, or do we not?
You know what?
I
didn't even see if I'm sure I did. If anybody loves my own drafts, it's me. You're right. I should go back and see who graded me how. But look, you could spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours. Go to fantasypros.com/draftwizard. Check it out right now. You can have all the settings you want. And obviously you have more settings available to you when you're a premium member of Fantasy Pros. So you can go do that. fantasypros.com/offers. Go take one of our offers there, upgrade 6 free months of Fantasy Pros. You can do that. But I'm telling you, I love the Draft Wizard. Welsh loves the Draft Wizard. It's a great way to start getting prepared for the season. So go check that out. Let's also check out these top dogs. The consensus number 1, it's Trey Turner of the now Philadelphia Phillies. So he has come to Philadelphia. Bryce Harper, we'll see sometime this season. We'll see. Aaron Judge is at the 2 spot. Julio Rodriguez is at 3. Jose Ramirez at 4. Ronald Acuna at 5. Kyle Tucker at 6. Juan Soto at 7, Jordan Alvarez, or Yordan Alvarez, I have to, call him by his name now, is number 8, Mookie Betts is 9, and Vlad Guerrero at 10. Welsh, you and I have a different number 1. You have Ronald Acuna, so do I.
Yes.
Let's talk about it, because Trey Turner's up at the top. Why is not Ronald Acuna that guy? Why is the consensus early on Trey Turner instead?
Well, it's really interesting, and to throw this out as well, just to give some perspective, I know this isn't everything. There's also NFBC drafts out there, which has really probably created all of the ADP, and but it's a different game. It's a little bit of a different game than a lot of the consumer stuff we're going to be playing. I did a sorting of draft champions, which is probably a better way to look. Draft champions, 21 drafts have happened so far since December 1st, and check this out. Trey Turner is the number 1 overall player. Again, so that if you really want to find the consensus, I think we're kind of on the consensus at Fantasy Pros with what's going on over there. But the next 4 are not the same. Ronald Acuna is number 2 over on NFBC on the draft champions. Julio is 3. Jose Ramirez is 4, and Aaron Judge is 5. So I'm bringing that all in to say that I think what you've got with Ronald Acuna right now is you've got a little bit of depressed power from last year, and you've also got an injury. And then you're going to pair that with some crazy performances. And you got Jose Ramirez, who I think justified to be in this conversation because you're getting elite stolen bases and really consistent production. 4 straight years, I think, of 2020 or even 25-25. And it's at a position that kind of stinks, and you get the stolen bases. Aaron Judge, lop off 20% of his production, and he's still probably one of the number 1 fantasy overall players, and he steals. And then Julio Rodriguez with his elite steals. So, what's the common denominator here? It's steals. It's all the steals. So why is Acuna coming back down when his Savant page is as red as red? It's the Red Sea. It's still everything it was before. And what did he do in the meantime when the power was a little bit suppressed coming off of injury? Is he just stole an elite amount of bases? I think he was still fourth in baseball.
29 in 119 games. And Welsh,
under
you know what's
120.
crazy about that? That was supposed to be like he's coming off knee surgery. So maybe the stolen base will be down.
That was literally the thing we talked about.
Everybody thought would be the case, and it wasn't the case at all. Acuna is my 1, Turner 2, and then I've got Julio 3 too. So it's funny how we see things in a different light necessarily than the early consensus. But I mean, with a more time removed from that injury, look, obviously Acuna played in the postseason too, so a little bit more tread on the tires than maybe some other players coming off injury. But regardless, I'm kind of where you are. Like, I think he is that combination of those things. Not a knock on Trey Turner. If you are in a 3 active outfielder league as opposed to 5, sure, I can understand that because you get the flexibility of that too. Plus, I like the ballpark factor too. A little bit easier place to hit home runs in Dodger Stadium.
Yeah,
so
and
that's a positive for Turner.
I want to add, like, outfield is kind of a big key here as well. And
outfield
I just want to throw out
this year, by the way. Can we just talk about
it? It's one of my big issues that I'm going to be dealing with. But, just the thing to add lastly, when we're looking at it, you still had top percent markers, even though the power was down 15 homers, a lot less than you would have wanted to see in normal years. I'm not looking at where his ISO is. I don't have it, but I think his slugging was down. But you've got a top 2% max EV, top 8% in X slug and expected slugging, top 5% in expected WOBA, WOBAcon top 5%, hard hit was top 8%. So like some of the
I'm going to WOBAcon, by the way.
WOBAcon's going to be great in San Diego, right?
I'm dressing up as a swinging strike rate.
You dress up as a baseball. You dress up as a baseball. Right,
because of my bald head.
It's a big mitt. That's exactly right. But my whole point is like the stats weren't exactly there, but all the underlying stuff is still there with a great team in a great ballpark. The factors are there. I'm still with Ronald Acuna, and you get him at a deal, and it's actually kind of why I really love that 4th pick in drafts right now, because it allows you one of these elite players to kind of drop, and then you get to make the decision a little bit. Like maybe you're getting Judge, maybe you're getting Julio, maybe you're getting Acuna. Any of those work. Turner and Ramirez obviously makes sense, but I think the guy to focus on here is Acuna, because you and I have met 1 and he shows up at 5 on the consensus rank, and I 100% believe that will change over the next 2 or 3 months, and or at least 2 months, and you're going to see him jump up to maybe at 3 on consensus, but he might not push 1.
Real quick too, Kyle Tucker, I think one of the guys who's going to benefit some of the most from the shift banning or changing modification, whatever you want to call it. Corey Seager, another guy too, probably the most guy to be helped from that shift change concept. I look, Juan Soto at 7 is a great value. Love this. Jose Ramirez is my early guy for MVP this year. We're going to talk more about that as we go. Lots to talk about there, because I do think Ohtani does get traded this year. So that's going to make things really wacky and wonky when we get to that point. But look, I don't have much of a problem with the top 10. I actually think this is a really solid top 10. I love that my boy Alvarez is in there. I think Vlad should be in there. The only question as we get to that next tier, the 11 through 20, we start with Ohtani at 11. If you're in a league where you get the 2 players in 1, especially in a points league head to head, Ohtani's the number 1 player.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Like, it's not close. So that's
my
big adjustment.
And that's my problem with it. And that's like my focal point on this group of 10 is Shohei Ohtani, that we have to talk about him in like 4 different ways. You got to talk about as hitter only, as pitcher only, as dual weekly, and dual daily. So dual daily, he's the number 1 player in every format: points, head to head, roto, dynasty, keeper, redraft. It doesn't matter. He's the number 1 player. You and I famously last year were obnoxious about Ohtani and how he didn't win the titles and everything, but it is what it is. He's the number 1 player in there. Now you take away, and he's a dual eligible player in weekly leagues. That's tougher because he's probably primarily a hitter. He's almost just a straight up hitter in that format. And this is where I still think he's inside the top 10, though. I still think even in that format, he's in the top 10. You can make adjustments. You get the pitching edge. As a hitter, he's still an insanely crazy high performer, 30-plus homers, double-digit stolen bases. The team is definitely looking to be better. You're going to have Anthony Rendon back. They brought in Hunter Renfroe. They just brought some more pieces in to maybe offensively help. And then when he's a sole eligible player, which at this point I think is just like Yahoo, maybe there's another one. This is where that's tough, because Ohtani is probably like between 15 and 20 at SP at best. And then hitter, he's probably you know, he's util only. That's the thing that holds him back. If he was like an outfielder, if he was outfield and SP eligible, the weekly would even move up. But util only does drop you just a tiny bit. But still, as a hitter, he's a top 2-round player. I just think that you got to focus here because this is the one player that is not traded equal. And I know like points and head-to-head changes, but this is a player that can go from number 1 overall down to even in the late 20s if he's just a pitcher or something like that. But yeah, best player in the
big
world.
Variance depending on, you know, where he is. And again, the push I'm making is looking at the division, seeing what the Texas Rangers did this offseason, seeing what the Astros still are, seeing what the Mariners I still believe are. And I think they're the 4th best team in this division at best. And I just don't think that's going to be good enough at the end of the day. And I think that's why the early market for Ohtani is going to be fascinating, because you're going to looking at teams who can afford to make that kind of move, who have the prospects to get it done, because you could get the most enormous haul for prospects maybe we've ever seen for a guy like Shohei Ohtani, because it's one thing to add a big pitcher at the deadline. It's another thing to add a big hitter. It's another thing to add both with one player. It's something we've never seen in our lifetimes happen. And I think it's going to happen this year, because I think the Angels, once again, are going to be irrelevant when push comes to shove.
The interesting thing about that, though, I think there's a lot of different sides to it. Like they've made their push. This is the best the Angels can do with the money that they've spent and screwed up. Also, by the way,
and I don't think it's going to matter.
Well, and that's what it comes to. Like they traded for Renfroe, and then they bring in Tyler Anderson, and they get Rendon back, and they get to trying to put the pieces together. And if they don't win, I actually kind of agree. If they've done all of that, they really do need to look at themselves and say, can we bring him back? And do we just need to retool this? Here's my only problem. I don't even know if the Mets, I mean, there are other organizations that could have better hauls.
The Mets have.
But I don't know if the Mets, well, I just don't know if they do. I mean, Francisco Alvarez would be the key piece. He would be one of the biggest pieces to it.
Yeah.
But where else are they going to go? They'd have to trade pitching.
Welsh, do you think it's a a surprise that they went out and got another catcher, had more catcher depth this year with
No,
Nevarez?
I don't.
I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, Alvarez was in the rumored stuff with Juan Soto, and that never ended up happening.
It is, but I think at the end of the day, the Angels, more than any team, need to restock their organization, and they can't let Ohtani walk. But I mean, this is going to be a topic, I'm sure, for many, many shows to come. We're going to talk about this. Yeah. Let's talk about the rest of the guys 11 through 20 in this next tier. We've got, after Ohtani 11, Freddie Freeman at 12, Bobby Witt Jr. What a great season he had. We were right to be as bullish as we were. Did it get off to a dubious start? Yes. Did my boy close? He sure did. He sure did. Bobby Witt Jr. looking fantastic. Corbin Burns at 14, great spot there, followed by Garrett Cole at 15, Mike Trout at 16, Bo Bichette at 17, Manny Machado at 18, Rafael Devers staying put in Boston, that's at 19, and Pete Alonso at 20. Again, love this. I like that Burns is ahead. I think that's another guy that could possibly be on the move this year. Burns and Cole make sense to me as top 15. You know me, I don't love these top pitchers going early for them. That's not where I am with fantasy baseball right now. But what are your thoughts on those guys there? And what are your thoughts also about Bobby Witt being a top 15 player this year already in the ranks?
Well, here's a couple things I want to point out. First off, how insane is it that this is maybe one of the first years we've ever seen that you don't see in the consensus rank? There's not a pitcher inside the top 10 or 11 or 12. Well, but it's always a thing that happens. I think Roto's going to push these guys up. I have that same order. I've got Burns and Cole, and I've got them not inside the top 12. I might have, I mean, I guess technically in a 15-team Roto, both of them do touch the first round if you're not looking at 12. But I think that's the general range. I will probably have 0.0 shares of those guys at that cost. I'm going to be predominantly hitter in my drafts, and Bobby Witt at this cost would be someone I'm 100% taking a look at. The funny thing about it is Witt is going at an insanely different cost than NFBC drafts. In the draft champions, 7. So draft and rank is going to be something really interesting to follow. NFBC drafts also are a lot more upside. You're chasing stolen bases, so I'm not surprised to see him there. But I got a hard time looking at like Bobby Witt over, some really key veterans. So 7 is way too high. What did you say?
He's over Bichette right now. Do you think that's wrong?
See, I don't know if I agree with that right now. Like, I'm into Bobby Witt's progression, but I think Bo Bichette is underrated right now, and I think that's a really tough pill to swallow, taking Witt over Bichette if you're looking for consistency, but you got to take your shots in some places. Either way, man, I think this is a great spot for when you're looking for 25 plus stolen bases with an uptick in power, which Bobby Witt can do. It's just the team context sucks. And if you look at where can I get more runs in RBI, if you compare Bichette and Bobby Witt, maybe you get more stolen bases with Bobby. you could easily get more homers with Bichette, but you also have a better run and RBI opportunity with the Blue Jays than you do with the Royals. So I think they're really close, but I'm in with Bobby Witt, and I would 100% take him. What'd you say it was, 17, 16?
He is at 13 right now already.
13? Okay, yeah.
Which I think there's a chance that he might crack top 10 at some point, because I do think they're going to look at the stolen bases and look at the deficit in that category. And people are, like you said, Roto's going to push. And I don't know if it's wrong, but I love him right where he is right now. I think that's perfect. I'm concerned it's going to move up. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, in the NFBC drafts, his high pick was 5 and his low pick was 10. So he never went below 10.
See, and that's why I believe when people start seeing that, that will push up because of the stolen bases. And I think that early indicator is one that, look, if you're doing early best ball drafts right now, and you're getting a value on Bobby Witt, do it. Take it now, because it ain't going to be there in 6 weeks. It's just not going to be there. The rest of these guys, like I said, no problems here. I think you get a tremendous value here with these corner guys with Machado, Devers, and Alonso at the end of this tier in the top 20 at 18, 19, and 20. Mike Trout at 16. Does that feel right to you?
I mean, it feels right in that, like, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take him if he's in that general range, 100%. So, yeah, I think it's about the general spot. I actually think the, like, mid-second round is pretty sweet. You said those 3 corner in. I think you said Machado and Devers, but you got to throw Austin Riley in there as well. You throw those guys in there. You have Mike Trout. You've got some of those pitchers. I think the mid-second round is really nice. That's also why, remember I said I like that 4th pick, maybe even if you want to go 5, because then that turnaround, you've got a legit shot at one of those pitchers. You got a legit shot at one of those corner infielders. Third base is not deep this year. You could theoretically get Acuna at 5 and then Rafael Devers in the second round. That's a bonker start. That's a bonker start to your draft. And then you can touch pitching a little bit later.
Look, I think in the season-long formats, look, you take whatever 100 games you can get out of Mike Trout. It's great. He had 40 bombs last year in 118 games, whatever it was. But at the same time, those head-to-head formats, you got to really think long and hard about that, because 118 games, 36 games, 53 games, 134 games, 140 games, 114 games. Like, I'm literally just going backwards here. Like, those head-to-head matches where you don't have that premium player, it's a tough investment. It is a great point, though, too, to make as you go into the second tier, these 11 through 20 guys. It's a really good year for salary cap draft formats, because there's some really good value here where you don't have to pay for the very top of the board guys, but you can get some real premium talent here in this next tier and get like 2 or 3 guys as opposed to just maybe one of the big guys there. Next grouping, 21 through 30. We start with Sandy Alcantara coming off a fantastic season, Cy Young worthy. Then Fernando Tatis Jr. starting point this year, 22. Remember that, because it ain't going to be there in a month from now. It's just not going to be there. Fernando Tatis Jr. at 22, Austin Riley, who you mentioned before, at 23, Paul Goldschmidt at 24, then Edwin Diaz at 25, going ahead of Jacob DeGrom at 26, Francisco Lindor at 27, who I personally think is being undervalued here at this ranking, Jose Altuve at 28, Michael Harris, who had himself a heck of a season, at 29, and Dylan Cease at 30. So this is where things start to open up for interpretation. We got to start with Tatis Jr., because this is the wild card guy. He could be a league winner for you, or it could be another year of massive disappointment. I know you are the dice rolling, wheeling and dealing, high flying, Byron Buxton drafting kind of guy. So how do you feel about Fernando Tatis Jr. this year?
You know what's going to surprise you is I'm probably not going to have a lot of Tatis. And you are right. I'm a limousine riding.
Jet flying.
Jet flying. Woo! Son of a gun that'll draft the Buxtons. And I listen, Tatis's projections are nuts. They're still nuts, and he's going to miss a month. He's going to miss a month of the season, and he's still got, I think it's like close to 40 homers, 20 plus stolen bases. Actually, as we're doing this, Fangraphs is down, so I can't look at the Steamer projections, or it's down for me, and I can't look at it. But he's got really crazy numbers. But I would say, like, something I don't love is miss games off the top of the year. I don't like coming out the gates bad, especially with this high of an investment. Tatis is already moving up in those draft champions that I'm citing. His ADP is now 18. So he's now inside the top 20. His high pick is 12 and his low pick is 28.
I'm telling you, you're not going to see 22 again.
I agree with you.
We are not going to see that number when we come back and do a show next week. I even guarantee you.
Well, you want to know what's crazy about it is he should have no issue with this. He's be able to play spring training, and then he'll just be suspended after the fact. You know what? I know he had like a second surgery, though.
Left on there too. Like,
I think it's 20. I think it's like 20 something games left. So he's going to miss April. He's going to miss essentially April. But he also had this cleanup surgery.
That's a DL stint. Like that's what you're missing.
But it's significant enough. I don't like coming out the gates missing that. And that's just something I'm a little against, especially with the high cost. If he's out in spring training in less than a month, I'm going to be on the backfield. So first day, my plan is to go to San Diego because I've also got Soto and everybody there now. And I want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
When he's there and he's looking healthy and he's hitting with Soto and he's crushing on the backfields, it's going to start to tick up. When he's in spring training games, it's going to tick up. It's going to push the first round. It legit's going to push the first round, and we're all going to put blinders on for the first month. This is not going to surprise anybody. The guy that I'm going to probably have more shares of that's in this round, and it is my jet flying, limousine riding, is Jacob DeGrom.
Oh,
I know it's crazy. I know it's crazy. It's going to make you sick.
I feel like we should have an intervention right now. I can't let you do this. Friends don't let friends draft Jacob DeGrom anymore.
Here's my big thing. Here's my big thing with him. He is, and I'm not saying I'm gonna take, because this would have to be like a ladder.
I knew you were going to say DeGrom.
I know you.
I felt it inside my bones. I knew it.
I'm going to preface this. We're going to talk next round. I'm not going to probably have the shares of him in this range because of the cost of my draft strategy, but I'm more likely to take the risk this year because Jacob DeGrom, when healthy, and that is the caveat, is the best pitcher in baseball. The projections through the roof on him, but you can't trust. It's a whole new organization. It's a whole new place. You can put a million questions into that as well. What offensive support does he have versus what he had with the Mets? What defensive support? I think there's a lot in that, but he is statistically the best pitcher in baseball when he's out there. And that's a risk that I'm interested in. Though the caveat is this third round, even though I said it, I'm probably not taking him. I'm probably not taking Tatis or him, and I'm going to go with a hitter in another
He
side.
Hasn't thrown 100. Look, I understand. Look, the 2020 season was what it was, but I mean, 92 innings, 64 innings. I can't do that. You don't want to know where I have in my rankings. I've got to be
I bet it's
20 something. Yeah,
I know.
Because I'm just not. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a terrible look. Everything you said is right in theory, but I live in a place called the real world, and in that place, Jacob DeGrom does not throw 100 innings ever. And not to be fooled, my old pal Nathan Bush, God rest his soul, from West Virginia, used to say, "Don't get fooled by a new paint a coat." Yeah, that's right, paint a coat. Because just because now he's wearing a different uniform and he signed for money and somebody made an investment doesn't mean you should. And it's really not be on this train. And it's not me hating him for leaving. I could care less about it. This is business. It's never personal. This is just about Jacob DeGrom as an investment. I told you last year he terrified the heck out of me, and I wasn't wrong.
It's something you're gonna have to stomach. It's just here's the things I have a problem with. Top 1% of K percentage, also top 1% of walk percentage. His expected ERA was in the top 2% of best in the league. Woba and Woba both were in the best 3% of the league as far as pitchers go. He's the best pitcher out there, so it's a risk assessment.
He's the best pitcher not out there.
When you know what, that's a very, very
right into
point.
it. Pow! There it was. I gave you the.
I think you and I are going to disagree on a lot of pitchers because we're going to talk about someone in the next round as well. I think we're going to disagree a lot this year.
Can't wait. This is why I love you, and that's why I love this show. So excited. Leading off is how many days away? 90 days away. We're even there. Probably less now. I don't even know. All right, let's get to the next grouping here. 31 through 40. Randy Arozarena at 31. What a season he had. I remember when he started slow and people wanted another guy that people wanted to just, oh my goodness, people losing their mind. Just relax. Nolan Arenado at 32. Nice value there. Again, how can I not take Nolan Arenado over Jacob DeGrom? These are things I just can't physically do at this point in my life. Aaron Nola at 33. Brandon Woodruff, who I do like a lot, at 34. Our good friend Eric Cross has some great stats on him recently too. He was thrown out there. Luis Robert at 35. My boy on a huge value, Emmanuel Clase at 36, Spencer Strider at 37, who you'll be very proud of me. I am higher on than anybody else.
Even me?
FantasyPros rankings.
No,
I believe I gotta look. All I know is I keep getting that warning whenever I publish my rankings. Says you are very, very high on these on Christian Javier and Spencer Strider.
I didn't get a warning on my Strider. I have Strider, I believe, at SP6.
Let's see where I have him. Okay, maybe you. I have. Oh my God, I have him at 6.2. Oh my God.
Look at us. We're in the same. We're in the same tier.
Friends again. So Strider right where he should be. Great value on Luis Robert if he becomes that dude, which I think he can be. 38 Shea McClanahan, 39 Hader, Marcus Semien at 40. Now I like McClanahan's risk more than DeGrom's 10 picks later, but I just think this is the next guy headed for the next arm surgery. I sat there on the show and leading off last summer, and I told everybody, as soon as he went past Justin Verlander, what did I tell? I said, everybody go reinvest in Verlander because McClanahan's not going to make it to the finish line.
It was a smart
play. And he didn't. But I love the player. I love the talent. The investment's tougher. 10 spots less than DeGrom I'm in, but I'm also still very low than consensus. So sell me on Shane McClanahan.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my guys. This is one of my big guys this year. And monster reds across the board. Again, this is another one of those guys you get on a baseball savant page, and it's the Red Sea. There's literally nothing blue across the board, from whiff percentage to walks and everything like that. Made a big change last year. This is one of the big things that you love to see, and you love to see the success. And really, this type of pitch is when you can maintain it. And I'm talking about his changeup that he adjusted to, is something that's very sustainable. So he lowered his slider usage from the previous year, increased his changeup usage this past year, and he started throwing around 25%. What's amazing about it is he upped in this usage change, and he predominantly threw the changeup, I believe it was to righties, and he never threw it against lefties, but he had a 40% whiff percentage on the changeup and the slider. And that upticked his slider percentage when he started using the changeup more, which equated to over 40% of his pitches between changeups and sliders have a 40% whiff rate on it. His fastball, he also added some horizontal movement, so he was able to, dink and dunk on the sides of the zone a little bit more, and he's got close to a 30% whiff percentage on that. This is a guy that pounds the zone. The curveball is what's so amazing about it is the curveball would seem like the big strikeout pitch, and it gets strikeouts, but it's a great setup pitch. The curveball I absolutely love to set up. The fastball got better. The changeup became elite, and he's got a slider. He's got four. I don't want to call them 4 plus pitches, but these are 4 pitches that he can pound the zone. He can get big strikeouts on, big whiff percentages, and he only put up 160 innings last year. So how I look at it is I think for the first half of the year, he was the best pitcher in baseball, and then he tapered off on the second half. This is also he's a young pitcher. He barely has any inning under his belt. So I think there's progression on board here with a great pitch mix. He's getting strikeouts. He also pounds the zone, doesn't have the command issues that some of these other guys do. And every bit of underlining stats work in his favor, though he's not like Jacob DeGrom in the 1% or anything like that, but he had a 5% walk rate with a 30% K rate. And I think there is more progression on the board for him to potentially become the number 1 pitcher in baseball. Maybe not this year, but over the next 2 or 3 years.
See, Mike, you're right. For the first half, he was arguably the best pitcher in baseball, if not the best. 10-3, 1.71 ERA. Second half, 4.20 ERA.
Yeah.
Second half, certainly far more hittable than he was. The strikeout rate also declined significantly from 12 to 7.6, the K per 9. That's a K per 9.
Yeah, K per 9.
And my concern with McClanahan is this. Now, what we saw last year, was that fatigue? Was that an injury that happened that we can get past? Or is that the beginning of what could be the next bomb of Shane McClanahan arm surgery? And that's why he's outside my top 20.
That's
and
fair.
I get it why people want to say
he's outside your top 20 of SPs.
Him and DeGrom both, because I can't get enough out of them. The quality is great. I'd rather have slightly lesser quality and get more quantity. That's where I'm at with pitching. And we'll get more about that when we get to our New Year's resolutions for 2023 and talk more about that. But guys like Woodruff, I feel more confident in, which I know he's missed some time too. Nola, for his warts at times in his career, he shows up. If I'm going to spend on an elite pitcher, Cole and Burns are those 2 guys. I do agree with that. There's a lot of age in that other tier too when you start to get to the Verlander guys and the Scherzers of the world, the older group. But more to come on some of these guys, because
it's interesting. And we won't get into it here, but It's interesting to hear you give Woodruff the pass, but a young guy who really hasn't had a track record of McClanahan doesn't.
But I'm worried about was that the precursor, the drop off and the missed time, the injury? And I was like, okay, are we getting to a point with him because he's so young? We've seen this a lot. We've seen these young pitchers come up, tease, they look great, and then they have the arm surgery, they have the arm issues, and then it kind of declines. Look, Woodruff is probably a bad example of some of those guys, but even ahead of those guys, and look, I know I'm going to be much lower than consensus. I look at the Kevin Gossmans and the Manoas and the Joe Musgroves of the world and Zach Allens, and I just feel like they're better investments for where they are. And in drafts, rather than me draft early pitching, I'd rather be locking in these hitters that are in the same. I'd rather be having Nolan Arenado. I'd rather be having the guys like who else was Austin Riley type, like those guys.
But just see that's where I 100% agree with you. Like I talked up DeGrom, and hopefully everybody got it I would rather probably DeGrom in that late third round or late third round or whatever it was, compared to the early top 21 pick of Tatis. But I'm not going to take him. I'm not going to take pitchers most likely in the top 3 rounds. So what's unique about it is Strider and McClanahan are probably going to be my number 1 pitching targets in that late third to 4th round. If you're in head to head, I'm going to target on those guys. Then I'm going to wait again. And then I love exactly what you said. Give me deals on Manoah. Give me deals on Kevin Gausman. Give me Luis Castillo, Zach Gallen. That's how I'm going to build my rotation.
Christian Javier this year too, and I'm a Javier guy from a couple years ago. Like this has been a long time coming here. All right, let's close out the rankings of the top 50, which is what we came here to do today. Max Scherzer at 41, Matt Olson at 42, Verlander at 43, Cedric Mullins steady as she goes at 44, Liam Hendricks, who again this is going to change now because of the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis. So obviously that ranking is going to change. That came just 24 hours ago. Carlos Rodon, 46, Shane Bieber, 47, Kyle Schwarber, 48, Zach Wheeler, 49, and Adolis Garcia at 50. Let's talk about Garcia, another guy who had a fantastic season last year. Another guy that's got swing and miss. Batting average obviously can fluctuate, but what he gave you last year was phenomenal from a fantasy perspective, especially the value he gave you. Is he still a value in this top 50 right now for you?
See, I think that's the great question that you're asking is he still the value? Because the one thing that he did that's so unique was what were we doing like in pre-2022? We're like, he can't repeat. Like he had this great season in 2021. I think we all
thought the power was real. It's just we wondered, could he make enough contact to really redeliver
exactly. That wasn't going to maintain. Well, like it kind of did. He hit 250. He was one of the few 25 guys in the year, 27, 25. He was better. Well, dude, on the underlining stats, he improved his EV. His barrel percentage, his hard hit percentage went up by 2% this past year. His XBA went up. His XBA is still not great, but here's one of the big things why I think you can't pass on Adolis at this point. Adolis had an expected XBA, expected batting average in 2021 of 220. So like he way overperformed that. This past year, had an XBA of 244, which was almost in line exactly with his batting average. So he's starting to stabilize a little bit, and he's stealing bases, and he's hitting home runs.
That's the difference, too. Man,
I don't like the cost.
25 is huge difference.
I don't like the cost, but I do like Adolis Garcia, and he belongs in the general. I got to tell you, I don't like a lot of these players in this 40 through 50 that you listed off. There's not many targets in here for me.
Yeah, I think this is the danger zone. And for me, Kyle Schwarber is the biggest one of the danger zone because I think falling into that trap of him repeating what he did last year from a power perspective is difficult. I know it's a good ballpark for power. I get that. I think this is the guy that misses Bryce Harper hitting behind him. And did he hit directly behind him? No. But you have to understand, if you're setting up approach as a pitcher, right? And you got Kyle Schwarber at the top of the lineup. We also have to see how that Philly lineup is going to shake out now with Trey Turner too. Like, how does that all work out?
Is he going to hit 3? Is Schwarber going to lead off? Is Turner going to lead off? Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of unknown there for me with Schwarber right now. He had a great season. Love the player. Love the guy. Personality for days. Big fan. But I don't think people respect enough what a difference Bryce Harper makes in the lineup when he's in it, when he's out. And it's not a knock on Trey Turner or Rhys Hoskins or anybody else in that lineup. But you pitch differently to the top of the order when you've got Bryce Harper waiting in the 3 or 4 spot. You just do. And I think he's going to see less fastballs this year. He's going to see a little bit different. And look, he could very well have overcome that. Schwarber was always a high prospect, high profile guy. There were struggles there for many years. He bounced around a little and he had a phenomenal season. And I'm not saying he can't repeat it. I'm saying I'm not investing as though he's going to. And I think that's the difference.
An interesting point, looking over at the NFBC info that they've got, he has, I would say, of the top 65 players I'm looking at, no one has a bigger top and bottom than Kyle Schwarber right now. He's got the 39 high with an 86 low. So here's some perspective. Some other guys that are in this generation, Scherzer has a high of 39 and a low of 63. Completely different players, sure. But I'm giving you Cedric Mullins, high of 41, low of 57. Jazz Chisholm, high of 34 to 55. No one in that top 60 has remotely as close of a bigger gap between the high and low that they go than Kyle Schwarber. And he is tough. He's a monster in points league, which is going to want to make people push up. Head to head in Roto, the batting average stunk. And is that going to stabilize? But can the power maintain? I agree with you. There's so many questions on him that it's a little divisive. He's not the type of player that I want to invest in. I don't think it's a crazy cost right now, but between 39 and mid 80s is ridiculous.
I think the cost is also because of what outfield looks like right now, which is rough. Let's be honest. Like it is once you get past that 25, 30, it becomes a lot of question marks and a lot of guys. So I get it. And I understand why you still, especially in the deeper outfield leagues where you got to make that kind of call and you got to take the good with the bad. If he hits 215, then he hits 215. You hope that he hits 35 bombs or something like that. To expect him to hit 40 again, I think is foolish. I think that's not a good practice. But this is just the first look we're doing here. I'm sure we're going to do many more. Yeah. This is the top 15 in a nutshell. Our first glance at what the ECR is at Fantasy Pros. And you can see that too. FantasyPros.com/rankings. Go check them out over on the MLB page. They're there for you. They're up and they're going to be moving all over the place, especially with the Trevor Story news that broke right before the show too about him missing 4 to 6 months. Oh yeah, no big deal.
No biggie.
Well, let's close things out here on a better note though. It's 2023. It's a fresh start. So it's time for some New Year's resolutions. Welsh, what do you have for us?
Well, I've actually talked about this. You just mentioned it. And this is a fantasy baseball resolution, right? Not to lose weight like I clearly need to do.
But I think it's probably better for the show if you do baseball stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we could do some workout videos with Welsh. That'll be fun.
I'd like to see that. I mean, I'm all for the workout videos. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. I mean, from a fantasy baseball perspective, you just mentioned it. My biggest resolution is to not let outfield get away from me. I can't say it enough. I said this actually on CBS not too long ago. This, I think, in my early runs of fantasy baseball drafts and mocks and best ball and all of this stuff that I've been doing is outfield is fool's gold. It will fool you because you're like, oh, there's so many more players than third base. Everyone's going to focus on how stinky second base is, which it is, how third base lacks some depth, which it does, which starting pitching is going to get nuts because people are going to wait. It'll happen. But nothing becomes more of a problem than outfield when you get too confident and you move past it. I have even had drafts already where I've taken 2 early outfielders and it still can get kind of bad later. You really have to be cognizant and know where you are in a draft based on outfield, because if you start 5, it can get real bad. If you start 3, don't get too confident that, hey, I only start 3. It gets away from you quick. And the tier jumps are so big this year that everyone talks about the same positions we talk about every year. Oh, second base, third base. Outfield is not as deep as you want it to be. You're going to have to hit on some guys late and just make sure you don't get too behind early.
I would say this too. I think we know this every year. Whenever we think it's a deficit, it ends up being something better than we thought. This is just the nature of the beast, but it's definitely a deficit early on. You got to look for some of these young players to step up too. Some of these young prospects. So the guys in Arizona will step up. You got to look for some of these other guys who are going to have opportunities, or some bounce back guys too. Like, does a Michael Conforto bounce back? Do you get guys like Riley Green bouncing back? I think if those guys, play up to their abilities, and all of a sudden outfield is better. But I will say I could not agree more. Address it early and address it late and take some shots on a lot of guys who have potential, because you're going to need that, because it is definitely thin. And for me, you already kind of heard it. I'm fading some of those early big pitchers again this year. I did it last year. It worked out, but I'm doing even more this year. I'm going for those guys that I think are just good return on investments. The guys in Toronto, some of the guys in Seattle, like those pitching staffs to me offer some really good ROIs because they're playing in the lesser markets. Let's be honest. You play for the Yankees, you're Garrett Cole. Everyone's going to want to draft you early. People still don't give Sandy Alcantara enough credit, or Pablo Lopez for that standpoint, or anybody really. So you start to look around at guys that don't get enough credit. I'm looking for some of those pitchers, those workhorse guys, and some of the smaller market teams too, because they get less attention. They deserve a lot more. But I'm telling you right now, Alek Manoah, Joe Musgrove, Zach Gallen, that is the sweet spot for me. It's going to be fascinating to see, what happens to the top 20 pitchers this year, because last year, talk about a complete reshuffling of the board. And this year, I think it could be very similar, where some of these other names that we're used to seeing continue to fade away and make room for more guys like the Striders and Christian Javier's of the world. So it's great to be back, Welsh. It's great to see you, talk baseball, hang out a little bit. It's good times. Don't forget, everybody, good times also await you over at FantasyPros.com/draft wizard. Go use the draft wizard. Start prepping right now. Go pick up your Fantasy Black Book 2023 too. It's on Amazon. Welsh wrote a ton of stuff, all the draft strategy for this guy right over here. I love this guy.
You got the book. You got the book. Is the book?
Oh yeah, the book is there.
That's what I was pointing at right there.
My big bald head, but all the great work that Welsh, Paul Sporer, Eric Cross, Mike Mayer, your own esteemed Mike Mayer, and a host of others all put into it. Great stuff there, as always. So that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. We're just getting started here. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros